October 1899, Loch Ness, Scotland. A young man locks the door of a house called Boleskine and walks away from it. Behind him, inside that house, a ritual space has been consecrated and prepared according to instructions that are centuries old. The sand on the terrace has been laid out precisely. The wax tablets are in place. The incense has been burning for months. The spirits that were called to the edges of that space were never dismissed. He tells himself he will come back. He tells himself it's a brief interruption, a few weeks at most. He does not come back. His name is Aleister Crowley. He is 24 years old, and the decision he is making tonight to walk away from an unfinished ritual, from a half-open doorway between this world and whatever lies beyond it, will define the rest of his life. He knew what the book said about stopping. He left anyway. Section 1. The book and the problem with it. The Book of Abramelin the Mage claims to be a letter. A Jewish scholar named Abraham of Worms writes to his son Lamech, explaining the magical knowledge he acquired during years of travel through Egypt, Greece, and Persia. The central encounter of those travels was with an Egyptian mage named Abramelin, who taught Abraham a system of sacred magic unlike anything in the Western tradition. The book was written, or claims to have been written, in the early 15th century. The oldest surviving manuscript is in German. In the late 17th century, a French translation was made from that German manuscript. In 1897, the British occultist Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers translated the French version into English and published it. That English translation is the version almost every Western practitioner has used ever since. Here is the problem. Mathers translated from the French. The French was translated from the German. At each step, things were lost, mistranslated, or omitted. When scholars eventually compared the English translation against the original German manuscript, they found substantial differences. Whole sections that exist in the German do not appear in the English. The timing instructions differ. The structure of the final operation differs. The version most people have been working from for over a century is not the complete book. It is a copy of a copy with pieces missing. Whether those pieces were lost through careless translation or removed deliberately is a question nobody has answered satisfactorily. But the pattern of what is missing is interesting. The gaps are not random. The gaps cluster around the most operationally critical sections of the ritual. The parts where the instructions need to be most precise to work and most precise to be safe. Someone handed the Western magical tradition an incomplete map and let them navigate with it for 100 years. Section 2. What the ritual actually demands. The central operation of the Book of Abramelin is called the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. Not union with God, not enlightenment, not power over spirits. Those things come later, and they come as a consequence. The primary goal is contact with a specific intelligence, one that is yours alone, that has been assigned to you specifically, and that has been trying to reach you your entire life. Abramelin calls it your holy guardian angel, but he is careful to clarify what that means. This is not a winged messenger from a Sunday school painting. This is the divine intelligence that carries the knowledge of your true will, your actual purpose, the thing you were put here to do. It has perfect knowledge of you. It has been present since before your birth, and it is separated from you by the noise of ordinary life, by ego, by distraction, by the accumulated weight of everything you think you are that you actually aren't. The ritual is designed to strip all of that away. It takes 18 months. The first 6 months are purification. You withdraw from the world as much as possible. You pray at dawn and at dusk. You simplify your life radically. You stop lying, even in small social ways. You stop indulging in anything that clouds perception. You are building a version of yourself clean enough to hold the contact when it arrives. The second 6 months intensify everything. More prayer, more isolation. The ritual space becomes the center of your existence. You are, at this point, calling something toward you, and everything in your life that is incompatible with its presence begins to surface and break down. Relationships that were built on false versions of yourself become untenable. Work that was never aligned with your true purpose becomes impossible to continue. The ritual doesn't just change you, it dismantles you so that what is actually there can be seen. The third 6 months is the contact itself, followed immediately by the binding of the demonic forces that have been obstructing you. Using the angel's authority and specific seals provided in the book, that last sequence, contact followed by binding, is where the missing sections cluster in the incomplete English translation. You are handed 18 months of preparation, and then, at the moment of maximum consequence, the instructions become unclear. Section 3. The Pattern of Disasters. Aleister Crowley is the most famous casualty of the incomplete ritual. He is not the only one. The pattern appears across documented attempts in the Western tradition. Practitioners who begin the abramelin operation and do not complete it describe a consistent aftermath. Not simply failure, collapse. The specific, targeted dismantling of everything in their life that mattered. Crowley left Boleskine in 1900, and the immediate years that followed were catastrophic by any measure. His mentor MacGregor Mathers, the man who had translated the book and introduced Crowley to it, descended into paranoia and died in obscure poverty. The magical order they both belonged to, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, collapsed in internal warfare. People close to Crowley died in circumstances that were difficult to explain as coincidence. He spent the next 2 decades trying to complete what he had left unfinished at Boleskine. Not through the abramelin ritual specifically, but through increasingly elaborate operations aimed at achieving the same contact by other means. In 1909, in the Algerian desert, he and a companion conducted 10 days of intense ritual work and claimed to have achieved something in the vicinity of what abramelin promised. Whether he actually did is debated. What is documented is that the companion's sanity did not survive the experience. The book warns about this. It says clearly that the entities disturbed during the preparation phase, the demonic forces that are supposed to be bound in the final sequence, do not simply go dormant if the ritual stops. They have been activated. They have been called the edge of the ritual space. And an incomplete ritual leaves them there, neither fully summoned nor formally dismissed, operating in the immediate environment of the practitioner without the angelic authority that was supposed to constrain them. You started something. You gave it energy and attention for months, and then you walked away from it without closing the door. Crowley knew this. Every serious practitioner knew this. The book is explicit about it. He left anyway, and the door at Boleskine stayed open for years. Section 4. The Conspiracy Inside the Manuscript. Here is where this stops being a story about one man's magical misadventure and becomes something more interesting. The Book of Abramelin, if it works as described, produces a human being in direct contact with their own divine intelligence. A person who knows their true purpose with certainty, who has bound the forces working against that purpose, and who has, according to the text, authority over the 72 spirits that appear in the grimoire tradition, including the ones catalogued in the Lesser Key of Solomon. A person like that is not controllable. Not by institutions, not by governments, not by any authority that depends on people remaining uncertain about their own nature and purpose. The Church spent centuries cataloging, condemning, and destroying grimoire literature. The Abramelin text was on the list. But unlike some texts that were simply burned, the Abramelin manuscript survived in a specific form. Translated, transmitted, and eventually published, just not completely. The question worth sitting with is whether the incomplete transmission was accidental. The gaps in the English translation are not distributed randomly. They appear precisely where the operation becomes most powerful and most dangerous. A competent translator working from a complete source does not lose sections by accident. Sections disappear because the source was incomplete, because they were deemed too sensitive to transmit, or because someone made a deliberate decision about what the public version of this knowledge should contain. Philip K. Dick would have recognized this immediately. He spent the last 8 years of his life writing about exactly this pattern. The Black Iron Prison does not destroy dangerous knowledge outright. Destruction draws attention. Instead, it corrupts the transmission. It introduces gaps. It ensures that the map is circulated with the most critical section missing, and then watches while people navigate with a broken map can draw the conclusion that the territory itself is unreachable. The exegesis, PKD's private 8,000-page document, describes this as the fundamental operation of the control system. True knowledge is not suppressed. It is allowed to circulate in a damaged form, convincing enough to occupy serious practitioners, incomplete enough to ensure they never fully arrive. The Book of Abramelin has been in circulation for over a century. In all that time, the complete operational version of the ritual has not been definitively established. Practitioners work from contradictory manuscripts. Scholars debate which version is authoritative. Nobody has achieved consensus. One man left a ritual incomplete at a house on Loch Ness and paid for it the rest of his life. A generation of serious Western occultists followed his incomplete map and found themselves at the same wall. The complete version of the instructions is either lost, or it is somewhere in a private collection in a restricted archive, in the hands of someone who understands exactly what it contains and exactly why general availability would be a problem. The Book of Abramelin is still in print. You can buy it today. You will be buying the incomplete version, the one missing the sections that matter most. The ritual it describes is still being attempted. The Holy Guardian Angel, or whatever that contact actually represents, is still the central goal of serious Western esoteric practice. Crowley's failed attempt shaped the entire 20th century occult tradition. Every major practitioner who came after him worked in the shadow of Boleskine. Philip K. Dick never read the Book of Abramelin. He was not an occultist. He was a broke science fiction writer in California who had a spontaneous experience in February 1974 that mapped, detail by detail, onto the contact the book describes. The intelligence that found him. The transmission of true knowledge through the noise. The certain sense that what had contacted him was more real than the world he had been living in. He called it Valis. Crowley called it the Holy Guardian Angel. The Book of Abramelin calls it the divine intelligence that has been assigned to you since before your birth. 3 different vocabularies, the same experience. What none of them could explain was this: if this contact is real, if there is something on the other side of that ritual that genuinely knows your true purpose and has been trying to reach you your entire life, why is the instruction manual for reaching it broken? Who benefits from a world where people keep attempting the operation and keep arriving at the same incomplete result? The Book of Abramelin has the answer in the sections that didn't survive the translation, or the sections that weren't allowed to. Tomorrow, on Illuminated Infamy, Forbidden Book Friday, the Corpus Hermeticum, the ancient text that was buried for 1,000 years, rediscovered in the Renaissance, and turned out to contain a map of reality that the Church had spent centuries trying to replace. And the reason Philip K. Dick's Valis reads like a modern translation of a document written 1,500 years before he was born